Welcome in. Here, my name is Chief. Here, joining me today is Jalen. How you doing today, Jalen?
Hey, I'm doing well, Chief. How you doing on this fine day?
I'm doing very well myself here. So,
Well, should say night, actually.
yeah, night. I mean, hey, technically, is it still day? Technically, there's sunshine somewhere, right in the world.
That's true.
Technically speaking, but but anyway. So, breaking news: Walker Howard entered the portal today, which you can kind of see it on the wall a little bit because of lunch coming back, being the number one guy. That's kind of the thing. That's how that's going on there. So we also have a couple of guys that the Cajuns actually signed in the portal today. Prince from LCA Jalen.
Mm-hmm.
He signed to the Cajuns.
That's
Broderick
huge.
Stewart, he signed as well to the Cajuns here. For his career, he had 8 total tackles. Didn't really, not really much on him too much here. He was at Tarleton State, which ended up becoming got eliminated in the FCS quarterfinals and stuff. So um, it's gonna be interesting to see where like Walker ends up. I think that's kind of one that a lot of people are looking at here. Great Cajuns baseball starts in a month. Cajun basketball had a loss against Troy, which they got pelted by threes. We're gonna get into that a little bit deeper there, but um, so how would you grade this transfer portal period for the Cajuns, Jalen?
Um, I think so far, if I had to give it a grade, I would give it a B plus right now. I think the Cages for sure got some guys for the offensive line. I mean, Prince, that's a huge one right there. I mean, I think the transfer portal Dez is doing a great job so far. They just need to keep it going. But I think to get to that A status. I still want them to try to get a few more players, but as of right now, I think I'm giving them a strong B plus. I think they're doing a great job so far.
I'm gonna give it a C plus. I'm gonna give it a C plus. Because I think that they could have did a little bit more because they missed out on a couple of guys that went to different schools. Like we had a target that went to your peer of Arkansas State. You got another guy that went to South Alabama. If you're like, I like to base this stuff on who you're going after, what your peers are doing. If your peers are taking a lot of your guys that you are actively targeting and they're being out there in the open for the public to see, it's not a good look for you. If you're actively looking out there getting these guys and these guys are jumping ship somewhere else here, not to say that it goes a complete failure, like you you would have to categorize that there, but if they can like sleep, they sleep and see what's going on there, but we'll see what happens there. I think that the Cajuns, though, I think they, but they did get a lot of guys from like recruited from for the offensive line and stuff. So I don't think this is a crazy idea that they didn't sign that many people, because they did have good success with that there. So I think that's part of it there. So that might be a reason why they didn't go too deep, but I gave a C plus because I think guys you target to go to other schools, it does not look good for you at all. That's my philosophy on it. But look, it's really hard to transfer portal. I get it, especially whenever you don't have the funds like you say you would do. But we'll just see what happens this year with all that stuff done. Right? Maybe find some diamonds in the rough in the recruiting class there. Because you got to think about it like every 1 or 2 years. You got to basically rebuild this roster. That's basically what's going to happen. So I think Dez and them should do a like almost like a junior college. You know how junior colleges replenish
Yep.
guys every 2 years. Adopt some of that. Adopt that formula because that would be a very good way to get guys out there, right? Maybe get some junior college guys too. I don't think it should be just FCS guys. Try to take some stabs on some junior college guys because they got really good, college football players that playing junior colleges that whether they get in trouble or whatever, they go to junior college and they end up balling out over there. So got to pay attention to all that stuff here. Maybe like you might get a Trinidad Chambliss one of these days here because you got to look at things. Coaches have to look at this thing differently here. I all like the parity in the college football sport here is I've said this before. I think the SEC has lost their place at the top of the mantle. I think it's the Big Ten right now. That's the top of the mantle because they probably have the most money. That's the way. Northern always had sit the way it is here. So with that being said, let's get players through these peer institutions that they're trying to deal with. What you think, Jalen? You think I graded them too harshly or what?
No, I wouldn't say too harshly. I mean, maybe I feel like I was going a little too high because I mean, like you said, you made a great point. They did lose out, and I mean, it's not. I can't entirely blame them for losing out on guys in the transfer portal because there's so many other schools that you have to beat out. But I think, but like I said, that's why I say they just need a couple more guys. Uh, I think to solidify that transfer portal window, and I think just building off the team that other players that's returning. And I mean, like you said, there's some key players recently that put their name in the transfer portal, so they need to be replaced.
Yeah, I got a lot. I got a lot more transfer portal stuff to talk about in our LSU podcast is gonna be coming up here tonight at 9 o'clock. So you'll join me, Juicy, and Bear as we take a look at the LSU Tigers. If you're an LSU fan that likes to follow both of UL and LSU, will be over there later on tonight. So with that being said, though, I think there's only so much you can talk about with football and stuff here. Jalen, Monday is the national championship game.
It sure is.
So I think it's only fitting that we do this every to win the game.
So I think, especially the way they've been playing all season and lately in the playoff, I think Indiana's going to take it. I think it's going to be Indiana.
People are trying to make comparisons with Miami's, front being a lot bigger than Indiana's line, but that hasn't paid well for the like other three teams that they played against, like Alabama, Oregon. Their lines were bigger than Indiana, and they handled business. So, and you can talk about Ohio State too. So, I think I'll agree with you. I think Indiana does pick up the win in that regard. There, I think they are just Indiana's all around solid. I can't like they are just that playing all around team. Like they don't have to be great at everything. You could be good at some like everything around, and it's very tough to beat you. Extremely tough. Cajun men's basketball, Jalen. Um, 3 game, well, 4 game road stretch here. So for the next 2 weeks, you're going to be talking about with the Cajuns here. So tomorrow, State here. We'll recap the ULM and Troy game as well. South Alabama, they'll go on the road there too. Then they go the next week, next Thursday, they take on at App State, and then the not this next Saturday, but the Saturday after next is Old Dominion. So before we get there, we got to look back in the past and see what happens here. And men's basketball picked up a win against UOM, but they picked up a 20-point loss to Troy. Now this is a tale of 2 games here. Honestly, the Cajuns scored enough points to win against Troy if they would have kept up with their defense. For the past 2 games, the Cajuns have let the defense kind of slip a little bit. But I'll say this though, Troy was on another level. They had great ball movement. They were able to get guys wide open shots and stuff in that 20-point loss there. I remember at halftime, we were sitting over there. We're like, it's just a barrage of 3-point shots. They shot, I think the first half, Troy shot 65% from three-point land. That is a killer, no matter who you're playing against. What you think, Jalen?
Yeah, with Troy, I mean, when you got to look at it with Troy beating them by 20. I mean, Troy is right there um, at the top of the Sun Belt, not too far from Southern Miss, another team that the Cajuns lost to earlier. I think the closest one they had against the win against ULM, I think Cajuns are better than ULM, but it's gonna be tough. This next 4 game road trip. I mean, it's not gonna get easy. I mean, they can win the game at Texas State, but South Al and App State is gonna be tough. I think they can beat Old Dominion. I think going 2-2 would be a win for this team if they're able to pull that off and accomplish that. Because I mean, they're still trying to. I know we've been saying it over and over, but they're still trying to get it together. And I firmly believe that they're going to click before the end of the season.
I think at this point here, I think you need to play for March. I think there's enough games where you're obviously not going to win the regular season Sun Belt championship. Like that's dead because you have one, you have let's see, three, four. The rest, I mean, you have four losses in the Sun Belt conference right now. So you're gonna have to like, and you're gonna get a couple more. That's exactly what's gonna happen with this team here. Because their defense starting to slip, but their offense is picking up too. So if they could find a way to marry those two things together, like they had the defense at the beginning of the year, where they were able to do that there, with the offense production starting to increase here a little bit, points scored, get guys getting there because the Cajun shot was 48.5 from the floor. Cajun shot against Troy. So they're shooting almost 50%. They're close to like the let's say 47% for the last two games there. 3-point land, Cajun for 40%, 3.3%. So that tells me that they're shooting better. You can look at the points scored between these two games here, and you can look at there and see that hey, we're shooting the ball a lot better. A good job of this shooting the ball better. So that is something that needs to happen here. So if they could keep it shooting wise, I think they'll be okay. That is what will a lot more in the beginning here. So if they can just keep, offensive production going like they've been going and just keep going that way there,
Hmm.
I think that will be a big thing for them here. So like defensively, it started to slip last two or three games there. But like if you're playing for March, like in the Sun Belt, I have said this repeatedly throughout the year. Sun Belt is not a good basketball conference. It isn't. It's a one bid league. No matter how you want to slice it or how it is. Troy looks really good, but Arkansas State looks better than Troy. So I think Arkansas State's going to be the team to beat in the Sun Belt this year in basketball, which is, I can't believe I'm saying that, but here we are. This is the reality of the situation here. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, uh, it's just one of those things. So, you know, Arkansas State, they look like they're the class of the Sun Belt right now. So speaking of Sun Belt, we'll take a look at the Sun Belt men's standings here pretty soon here, so we can get an idea of what is going on with all that, with the men and the women's basketball teams here in conference here. So, uh, Jalen, I think we're kind of at the midway point of men's basketball season. So, I
Yeah.
mean, so what you think? Like how you is the Cajuns underperforming that you would expect, or it's a brand new team. Just kind of we just got to kind of expect that there too. What you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're underperforming. I think they have there were games where they had the lead and they let it slip away from them. But that, like you said, that goes to having a young team. And the fact that Cajuns were able to pile up some wins. I mean, they still beat a ULM team. I mean, I know it is ULM, but at the same time, the Cajuns are really a brand new team. They had the game against South Al. That game was basically won, but a couple turnovers. South Al put points on the board, ended up stealing that one. So the Cajuns have been close in some of these games. They're not underperforming. They're just still trying to get it together. But like you said, only one team could get in March, and if they get hot then at the right time. Ooh, look out, because I mean, these teams, the team like them, you don't expect them to win anything. So that takes the pressure off of them, and that way they'll be able to play their game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of it though too. Uh, we are kind of looking at that situation there, just to kind of see what is going on with all that. Because look, you get there and I'm trying to see where this stuff is at here. Uh, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, you get there in March and you're kind of in that position there. You just have to make it to the conference tournament in the Sun Belt. point blank. That's just realistic. This is no like just get hot at the right time. You win it. You get in the tournament. Now, I don't think a lot of people is really going to look at the diehards are going to look and say this is kind of a wash because you got hot in 1 March. But I think we need to kind of look at our perspective in a different kind of way. Think about this for a second. All these other players are like, okay, when it came down to crunch time, you got hot at the right time and ended up making the NCAA tournament. Therefore, you might get better players because you're like, oh, dude, we can get better like in the regular season. We can get all this other good stuff here and get more people there. They got more NIL money like coming in and stuff like that. Like that could be the key. That could literally all be it is. All that it be there. Like, because look, someone might be sitting at home like, you know what? I want to play at like a nice little stadium. Like, I don't. I know I'm not going to make it to a Power Four, but let's use the Sun Belt Conference as my springboard to get to a bigger school, and that's the kind of way that we need to set up ourselves as. Because I think if we end up being this final destination place, especially in basketball, we're going to end up hurting ourselves longer in the long run because it's just not the way that it just needs to go, which is unfortunate. And I'm trying to like speak the best way I can about it because it pains me to say that. Like that sentence, that whole thing really hurt me to say a bit. I think that's just the way that college athletics is just looking at the Cajuns right now, and not just the Cajuns, the rest of the Sun Belt Conference here as springboards to bigger programs. We're like a farm system for these bigger programs, like I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, UL being a farm system for Houston. That's kind of the way they're looking at us right now. So um, that could be something to kind of look at there too. So we'll see what that there can do. So let's talk about Raging Cajun win. Okay, I'll give them the credit for the win, but they've lost 15 other games. So at least they beat Dillard. I'll give them that. They got one at least. Arkansas State coming to town on Thursday. I don't think they're going to win that one. I think they'll even lose the UOM on Saturday. There was like they had a win, and it was just terrible to watch that go down. I was there Thursday when they played UOM, and I was like, oh, the Cajuns are gonna they have a good shot to win this game. UOM scores 20 some points in the final period, and that was the end of that. That was not even a good finish to that one there, Jalen. So I don't know if you watched it, but what you thought about that game?
I mean, I did like how they basically outscored them through the whole game. Well, basically through the first half for sure, and they were playing great. And then the second half, it's just like, especially the fourth quarter, something just clicked for ULM, and the Cajuns couldn't get any points really. I mean, ULM outscored them in the fourth quarter, almost basically triple the points because the Cajuns scored 9 and ULM scored 27. So I mean, it's just I don't know. The fourth quarter is like a fourth quarter just wasn't their quarter, and that's how they end up losing by 10. And I mean, it's just it's tough. ULM is kind of at the bottom. I mean, right there with the Cajuns, not the very bottom, but I mean, you think that games like that they should have won, and it's just not looking great. I mean, they have one win, 0-6 in conference play. I just don't see which game coming up can they win, especially with them being in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, like it's just gonna be hard for the next couple of reasons here because you're gonna have um there's not really much interest in women's basketball in Lafayette. I go to the game sometimes and there's just nobody over there at all. And it's just not worth a lot of people's time. They end up like leaving. Like I saw after the men's game, a lot of people left, and I was like, okay. But it's just because women's sports is really starting to get a big movement going on. I feel like the Cajuns are kind of just behind all that stuff there, which it's kind of sad to see. But uh, it's hard to draw a crowd. They they said there's no attendance, and they try to make it for free, and there's still no attendance over there. So I hope they can turn it around. I don't think they'll beat Arkansas State though. Arkansas State is one of the best teams in the Sun Belt this year for women's basketball. So that's gonna be tough on them. They're like Troy basically. So uh, ULM they might be able to finish it out here, but they're gonna have to do it on the road for these next two games coming up. ULM's gonna be on the road. They're gonna have to figure out how to close that one because like we were mentioning earlier, the 20-point giving up in the last period here because they had that game won. They were able to dump the ball down low, get some post action going on, and they were able to get some points scored there. So they did a really good job feeding the ball inside, which I think should do more. Women's basketball get more offensive rebounds and stuff. Kind of what the key was when they played ULM, and then they ended up scoring like they got a bunch of offensive rebounds in that fourth period. I remember watching that game, and I was like, okay, they're doing very good at like getting offensive rebounds here. Cajun shot not great from the floor. That's something that needs to improve there. But even when they were getting down to the post, they were still missing shots there. They were good at getting the ball down to the post against ULM, but they wasn't good at finishing shots and stuff. So that's something that we need to look at and see how they will do, in the coming games. That is something they really need to focus on and get that going there too. Which I think you could say for the men's. I think that's the men's Achilles heel. What you think, Jalen?
It absolutely is, and I think that if they don't change that, that's going to bite them even all the way until the end of the season, and they're not going to be able to pick up these wins that they should be getting.
Yep, I think that's the way it's gonna go. So, like that's part of the thing here. It's gonna be a problem pretty soon. That's just what you got to do here. So that it is what it is at this point here, basically. So we got all that going on there too. So, all right, I'm gonna have to change out this here. Let's see. Let's get out of this women's basketball here. Raging Cajun baseball is coming up pretty soon. 1 month away till we start off a new season. Raging Cajuns baseball did not perform very well last year. This is kind of thing where I'm like, okay, is it a problem? Are we going to see the downward spiral continue? You got bad news for Chase Morgan during the off season. He's going to be out probably for the rest of the season here. I mean, I'm kind of hesitant to even say that because Cajuns have done that before, and they end up coming up at the end of the season. Toward the end of the season here, they finished 27-31 last year. 133 RPI, 70 strength of schedule. Had a very strong non-conference schedule last year. It looked promising in the beginning. I remember everybody was getting excited about the Nebraska series win, thinking like, "Oh, we might have a really good team this year." Then UC Irvine, who ended up being ranked number 23 in the country. Dallas Baptist was a good team last year. They ended up losing those two series there. LSU in the midweek, destroyed the Cajuns basically. And yeah, like when you lose to ULM, it's a bad season going all together. And Old Dominion there, but a win, but Old Dominion wasn't that good last year either. Georgia Southern wasn't good. So the teams that they should have beat last year, they beat them. It seemed like for like poor teams and stuff like. But Arkansas State, we shouldn't have lost that series. Southern Miss, they were really good last year. They swept the Cajuns. So that's something that's gonna have to, we're gonna have to elevate and see what's gonna happen there. So pitching was definitely the Achilles heel for the Cajuns last year, and I think that's something we're gonna have to look at as we get into there here because the Cajuns did produce some runs at times. They get 4, 5, or 6 runs in the game, but the pitching would just give 7, 9, 12. Like against the better teams, well, a good bit of runs. So that's like 10, 8. Because your offense isn't gonna carry you every single time. That's just the way it is. It's just one of those things that's just not going to happen there. Um, so yeah, that's a problem that we're gonna have to see here. Let me go adjust my camera here real quick. Let me go switch this out for y'all. Let me get my webcam going here. It's time for the webcam to make a moment. Let's see. HP. Yeah. You can blame Jalen, guys. Let's see. Is this thing okay, that closed it. Okay, I'm trying to see why this thing isn't doing that. HP True Vision. Maybe I have to go like do VMix and then go back to this. It should. I don't know why it's not popping up. Oh, you know why? I know exactly why. I gotta get out of the screen here real quick. Give me a second, y'all. I gotta go turn it turned off on me. Let's see. Here I am. I'm back. I am back on this. So, yeah, back to Raging Cajun baseball. Wasn't that great of a year that they had last season. So, are we gonna see a repeat of what happened? Chase Morgan being out for the season. That's one thing that happened last year. So, to reiterate what we got going on here, looking at it here, how you feel, Jalen? Like I'm in a weird spot with Raging Cajun baseball because it's like I I just don't know. I really don't know how to feel. Like football, I felt like we were like an 8-4 football team this year, or we had the potential. While everybody else was kind of like when preseason was going on was I didn't really know. I was like question marks, right? Wide receivers and stuff. Basketball was like we might make a big run this year. Like the hot take was that we will win the conference in basketball because transfer portal you just don't know who you're gonna get and how that's actually gonna end up going. But baseball, I really don't know how to feel. I feel a little bit more pessimistic about it than other ways here. What do you think, Jalen? Like, you gonna pump me up or you gonna just tear me down some more?
No, I'm gonna pump you up. I mean, like we said, last year was last year. We're gonna put that in the past. This Cajun baseball team, as of recent years, have been pretty good under Diggs. They have. Um, but I'm more interested to see what's gonna happen with the team this year, especially with everything going around with Chase Morgan. Because I mean, what like he he was the guy. He was preseason All American third team preseason last year, first team All Sun Belt freshman of the year. I mean, it's just you. What is this team going to do? And that's just something this is something I want to think about because what are they really going to do this year compared to last year? Because Chase Morgan's out indefinitely.
I This is such a new like you got Drew Markle who's been there for a couple of years. You got some guys that stayed that been there for a couple of years, which is fine. I mean, but you lost a lot of people in the portal. But the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. That's just what we got going on here. So the first series is going to be against Missouri State on February 13th. That is exactly 1 month from now, 2 o'clock. I think that I've seen some comments about people like why we got the game times being so high up, and I think Mardi Gras got something to do with that. Um, Usually they
Probably
have a
so.
little like if you're not familiar with Lafayette, they got the parade that goes through Cajun Field and stuff. The parades, I mean, they go through Cajun Field, a little Mardi Gras festival there in the Cajun Field, Russo Park parking lot. They have to make all these changes and stuff and everything going on there. So they have to kind of get everybody from one spot there, one spot back. Might drive a lot more attendance though. Not too bad, technically speaking. But yeah, I do like Friday night baseball games, man. That 6, 7 o'clock is always fun to go see here. But it's gonna be kind of hard to get to the stadium with everything moving on. You know that, huh, Jalen?
Oh, absolutely. That's the game.
All
That's
those
that's
news
the
live
that's the
shots, bro.
game. That's the game right there.
That's the game right there. Just game that's outside the game, getting into baseball stadium during Mardi Gras season, all the barricades around Lafayette. That's the game outside the
Oh,
game right there.
yeah, seriously.
But yeah, like this is gonna be a different team this year. So it's kind of like well, it's almost like a wait and see how you feel about kind of thing. We will do a little more in-depth dive with the Cajuns. You got Mandino, he's back from last year. I'm just kind of going to do a quick little run to the roster. Drew Marco Lee Amade. Um, you got Torres back from last year too. So they got some guys that have came back here, but you got some guys that, brand new faces. Fall ball can be what fall ball is, but until we actually get into the season and how these guys actually play, it's going to be a lot different going on here. So we don't really know what we got here. They got a couple of new guys out there. just to see how they're gonna do here. I just don't know how to feel though, and I'll eventually, get to the point where I'm like, okay, I guess I'll make a prediction or whatever. Not, I know Will Taylor's been there before. St. Thomas More, Hayden Pearson. He's a freshman from Ascension Episcopal. So it's you just don't know. I think if I had to base it on what we saw, like in the history makes it feel a lot better. Like I feel better about the when you look at Degs and everything else from like 22, 23, and 24, they made it to the regionals here. So I think expectations should be conference championships. I think that should be the gold standard across all Raging Cajun sports, a conference championship. Okay, that should be our number one. Like if we're looking at it through that lens here, I still like to give coaches 4 years because I still feel like that is a thing. I don't think Deggs is on the hot seat because of one bad year. I think that's kind of like trying to. I know he's in a contract year this year, so I if let's say if he does have another bad year, like let's go through the hypotheticals here. Dex has a bad year, and we're sitting at the same record we were last year. Do we move on from Dex? And if we do move on, who you gonna have as your top three guys here? That'd be kind of something to kind of think about there. You gotta have at least three because if you don't have three, then you don't really want to move on from your head coach. Then, so if we have a bad year and you decide to keep him, how long of an extension do you give him? How many years? I'll ask you that, Jalen. If you're in the perspective of where you keep Degs, if you have that bad year and you give him, how many more years would you give him if he has another bad year this year? If you're keeping him,
So if he had another bad year, I would give him 2 years.
two.
I would give him two. And I would say that during that first year, which would be next year, if he didn't perform, then going into that second year, I have the mindset of, okay, I'm getting a new coach.
I think you almost have to be prepared in that second year to like be ready to move on in that extension, which I think that's a great one. I think 2 years would be kind of like the perfect one because just in case, what if he turns it around, right? You do that bad year, then
Yep.
that third year
Hmm.
he turns around, he just hits it, and he gets good back to back years possibly.
Yeah.
But at that point, like if he gets good, do you extend him some more? What like it's that's that whole debate there. But like I think the hitting was good enough last year for the Cajuns. Um, they just didn't have the pitching. Pitching, I will always take great pitching over great hitting every single time because a great pitching staff, we've seen it with, you know, we have seen it with several teams here. Just carry them throughout the whole entire postseason. That's when you really need your pitching is in the postseason, and you want to have at least you want to have three solid guys and like two great relievers that come off of there, and so that's like 5 or 6 pitchers that you really want to have whenever you have them short turnarounds and them short rest weeks and stuff, so you can have a couple extra guys ready, arms ready to roll out there. So I think at that point there, I think if Dex could do a little bit better there, maybe it was so we lost our pitching coach, Gunnar Leje to Southern Miss. Like a pure thing I was talking about with the Dex situation there. Maybe it was Gunnar. Maybe Gunnar was the problem. We're gonna fuzz, but he might have been. That's one wrinkle that we have to try to solve and see what happens here. So if he that might have been it. If if we have a great pitching staff this year, that the surprise like that would be the surprise, right? That would be like one that got completely shut down everybody coming up in there. That would be the interesting one to actually look at there. Like might catch us all off guard here. This is a lot of preseason talk here. It's like don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel looking at this baseball team. Not saying they're gonna be bad. I'm not saying they're gonna be good either. Um, I'm gonna have to like really like get down to it, but once we do our Raging Cajun baseball preseason preview here in probably 2 weeks, I would say. I think 2 weeks is a good time to do a season preview here. That way you can get softball going too, because softball is going to start pretty soon too. So that's something else here. I feel better about softball. To be honest with y'all, I feel better about softball than I do baseball. Softball made some interesting moves that I think will actually pay off very well for the Cajuns this year. And that'll probably get them maybe toward the top part of the Sun Belt again. I'm feeling better about softball than I am about baseball. I don't know if that's me being pessimistic or being realistic, looking at the situation. But it's hard to tell the transfer years and stuff, and losing a lot of transfers. But there's one thing that I think we all can agree on across all the sports, all the teams that have experience in this NIL era. In the NIL era, they typically do better than they would if they had a bunch of transfers come in, which we might be seeing that with men's basketball. Like for example, Troy. Troy is a very junior, senior heavy team. I'll also give you another example in a different sport to back up this up as well. 2024, Cajuns didn't really lose that many people in the transfer portal. They lost some, but the core of the team was very senior and junior based. They were able to adapt and overcome this kind of stuff here where they were very, experienced. That experience plays off very well. If you could keep your team together, you'll be better off here. Look at Indiana this year. They're very experienced across the board, but they're not like the insane talented 4 or 5 stars that we see other teams have. If you look at like baseball, LSU had a lot of players and stuff that were, they had Anderson and Ellison last year. That was great. Even Coastal had some seniors and juniors that were heavily stacked in the experience category. They were able to make a deep run in Omaha. So that is something that we're gonna have to look at. That's one thing that we're gonna have to see. And I think at this point in time, that I think if you have an experienced team in the NIL era, you will probably do very well. Just based on everything that we're seeing here. What do you think, Jalen?
No, I absolutely agree. The way the NIL era has taken over with college sports, I feel like you mix with veterans you already have on the team coming back, transfers, and incoming freshmen. I mean, dealing with NIL, the transfer portal, that's basically how you can build your team. I mean, we look at softball. Look at Texas Tech when they took some of the Cajuns players and brought the in Glasgow, brought them over there, and they made to the national championship. I mean, they lost, but they made it. So, that's just a few players could turn a few players in the transfer portal could turn your whole program around.
But I think like in Texas Tech situation, all these Cajuns players play together. They had something already built. They
Yeah.
know how much velocity you put on a ball when you throw it from short to first, right? We kind of didn't see that with like with teams that don't practice that much together. Um, you don't know how hard someone throws a ball across the field. Like you don't know how they react to certain ways. You learn how to play with each other, and the team chemistry between all these teams gets lost when they lose out, right? So they end up going to California or Ohio State, uh, Alabama, all these different places. And when they arrive, they have to learn their teammates here. But it's different. In practice, is a whole lot different than playing in a game because you can practice all day long. You ain't gonna have that many people out there watching you like you would during game time, right? So,
Hmm.
like Jalen, we've been knowing each other for a couple of years. You know how I would react in certain situations and stuff. So, um, yeah, just stuff like that. I think that kind of gets lost in the whole NIL era. Like the teams don't have a chance to really build as much chemistry and stuff with each other here. So whenever you have a very heavy portal team, it makes it tough on you to build a team. Like you could have all the talent in the world, but if you and that other person ain't on the same page or you're missing assignments and stuff, you're gonna be in bad trouble, and it's not gonna end up well for your season here, which I think can explain, some teams that have performed that have great portals hauls, right? great portal seasons, and they just don't meet those expectations of their fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to say, Jalen, before we get off here?
I just want to say, can't wait till baseball, softball season coming up. But y'all keep watching and going to the men's and women's basketball games. I'm telling you, the men are going to win some more games, and the women just keep supporting them.
Yeah, I think with the men, if they had more post play down low, I think they would be a lot better team. That because they're shooting very good from the three line. I mean, they are pretty good three ball shooters. Just got to get some inside help. That's it. I think that is the key to turn around men's basketball. I think that's the one right there. Thank y'all for tuning in to this episode here of Fishbowl Sports. I hope you have a great and wonderful night. And we're going to see y'all in about, let's see, an hour and 20 minutes as we'll break down LSU and their portal haul, and all this other stuff going on. So thank y'all for tuning in. Hope you have a great and wonderful day. And we'll see y'all, wonderful night. And we'll see you here next time. Fishbowl Sports. Have a good night, Fishbowl Nation.